Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're unpacking a truly unbelievable modern-day parable. We're talking about Daniel. He's a 22-year-old who literally went from sweeping city streets to sitting in the boardroom as a massive company's CEO. It is a wild ride, and it's absolutely packed with actionable lessons about integrity, long-term thinking, and what wealth actually means. I'm super excited to get into this one with you.
Okay, let's dive right into this. It's a pretty provocative question, right? Can sweeping streets really teach you how to build an empire? Usually, when we think of business titans, we picture fancy MBAs, crazy venture capital, and high-tech startups. We definitely don't picture a broom and an early morning shift on the pavement. But as you're going to see, the foundational skills you need to build something lasting, well, they can actually be forged in the most unlikely places, as long as you have the exact right mindset.
So let's kick things off with Section 1, the humble beginning.
Picture this. Daniel's day starts way before dawn. He's sweeping streets, keeping a smile on his face while people literally walk by and mock him, whispering that he's going to be stuck cleaning streets forever. But his day doesn't magically end when he puts the broom away. Nope. After a grueling, back-breaking shift, where is he? He's sitting in the public library, totally immersed in business books. His best friend and coworker, Tom, is right there beside him, just casually eating a sandwich. Tom looks at Daniel's exhausting, crazy routine and basically asks what we're all thinking. Man, you clean streets all day and then study all night?
Now, what's really interesting here is Daniel's response. He just looks at his friend, smiles, and says, "I'm cleaning my future too." Boom. That right there, that is the absolute anchor of Daniel's entire philosophy. He doesn't see his current situation as some sort of trap. He sees it as a stepping stone. He's pairing extreme daily humility with a massive long-term vision. Tom kind of laughs it off, but this exact mindset is what perfectly sets Daniel up for what happens next.
Which brings us to Section 2, the test of honesty.
One morning, out on his regular route, Daniel stumbles across a misplaced briefcase. He opens it up, and guys, it is a treasure trove. We're talking important documents, giant stacks of cash, and highly valuable business contracts. Tom is right there, whispering in his ear, "Hey, no one saw anything." And the temptation is massive. It's an instant ticket out of poverty. But Daniel immediately snaps the briefcase shut. He says it belongs to someone. He spends his entire day tracking down the owner, who turns out to be this wealthy businessman named Mr. Lewis. And when Daniel hands it back, Mr. Lewis is absolutely floored that every single dollar was returned untouched.
Mr. Lewis immediately tries to offer this huge reward, but Daniel politely only accepts a tiny amount. Struck by this crazy level of honesty, Mr. Lewis just hires him on the spot. He offers Daniel a job at his company. And Daniel? He doesn't just coast in this cushy new role. He works relentlessly. He methodically builds up a completely new toolkit: leadership, finance, customer service, business management. He treats this corporate job exactly like he treated those library books, as an education. But as he climbs the ladder, he hits a major roadblock in Section 3, the shortcut versus integrity. Enter the villain of our story, Mr. Black. He pulls Daniel aside and pitches this incredibly seductive shortcut to instant wealth. He literally promises to make him rich in a single year if Daniel just agrees to use some, let's call them, illegal business tricks. It's a stark contrast in philosophies. On one side, you've got Mr. Black promising rapid, unearned wealth through total deception. On the other, Daniel's unwavering belief: build success slowly without ever losing your integrity. So Daniel just gives a polite smile and totally turns him down. Mr. Black actually walks away laughing, thinking Daniel is a complete fool for passing up easy money. I actually want to pause for a second and throw this back to you. Seriously, what would you do if you were offered a guaranteed, completely untraceable shortcut to instant wealth, but you had to compromise your core values? Could you walk away? It's super easy to say yes in theory, but Daniel actually proved it in practice. He chose the slow, grueling path because he knew his foundation had to be rock solid. And that leads perfectly into Section 4, competing on trust.
Armed with all these new skills and his totally uncompromised integrity, Daniel pinches pennies. He saves every single paycheck until he finally scrapes together enough to buy one old van and launch his very own cleaning service. And in a totally awesome twist, Tom proudly signs on as employee number 1. There's this great story where, on one of their first jobs, Tom accidentally blasts himself in the face with a water hose instead of washing the windows. The whole crew just cracks up. I love this little detail because it shows that even with the immense, crushing pressure of a new startup, they never lost their joy. The beginnings were humble, for sure, but the culture was incredibly positive. But, of course, the startup honeymoon phase doesn't last forever. A massive, heavily funded cleaning conglomerate opens up right in their backyard. They start aggressively targeting Daniel's market, and practically overnight, he starts hemorrhaging customers. Total panic sets in among the team. One of his stressed-out employees just looks at him and goes, "What now?" It is your classic business case study, right? How on earth does a tiny startup survive when a massive giant tries to crush them on price? So, the crucial point is how Daniel responds here. He doesn't panic. He just looks at his terrified team and says, "We won't compete with prices. We'll compete with trust." It's a brilliantly simple strategic pivot. He leans entirely into his core superpower, integrity. He has his team double down on providing legendary service, treating absolutely every single customer with the utmost respect. And guess what? The strategy totally works. Slowly but surely, those highly satisfied customers come right back to him. Let's fast forward a few years to Section 5, the true measure of success. Looking at this trajectory, it is just a stunning visual representation of patience and persistence. From sweeping streets in the cold, to finding that briefcase, to grinding out the hours to truly learn the business, risking it all on a startup, and finally ending up as a millionaire CEO. This did not happen overnight, and it absolutely didn't happen by taking any of Mr. Black's shady shortcuts. So when a reporter inevitably corners Daniel and asks, "What changed your life?" Daniel doesn't start rambling about some growth-hacking marketing trick or a complex financial model. He just smiles and drops this absolute gem of a quote. "The broom never embarrassed me. Giving up would have." It's amazing. He stayed completely grounded the whole time, never once letting his ego get in the way of his work ethic. But Daniel's version of a $1 million empire looks a little different than most. He immediately takes his newfound wealth and leverages it to make a real tangible impact. He focuses heavily on creating jobs specifically for people in poverty, basically giving them the exact same shot that he had. He also fully funds and offers free training programs to upskill his community. He is actively, intentionally lifting others up the ladder right behind him. Which brings us to the emotional climax of Daniel's whole journey. There's this incredibly touching moment where he shares a proud, tearful embrace with his grandma Maria, the one who raised him. She just looks at him and says, "I always knew your kindness would make you rich." It beautifully highlights that his ultimate success wasn't just some triumph of clever business mechanics. It was a true triumph of character. And the narrative gives us this perfect, poetic bookend. In the final scene, Daniel, now a highly successful multimillionaire, goes right back to the exact same street where he used to work. He quietly picks up a broom and just starts sweeping. A younger street cleaner notices him, looks totally confused, and asks, "Why are you cleaning? You're a millionaire." Daniel just replies, "Never forget where your journey began." And this brilliantly illustrates the overarching moral of this entire explainer. We're left with this really powerful thought. True success is not measured by how much money you have. It's measured by how many lives you improve. The money? That was literally just a byproduct of Daniel's relentless commitment to adding value and maintaining trust. So let's tie this all together into our core takeaways. First off, no honest work is ever wasted. Even sweeping those streets built the exact discipline Daniel needed to run a corporate boardroom. Second, it's that timeless formula. Stay humble, work hard, and the success will naturally follow. And finally, perhaps the absolute most empowering point of all, your beginning does not define your ending. You have the agency to study at that library after a brutal shift and completely rewrite your own trajectory.
Which leaves us with one final question to chew on today. How are you measuring your own success? Are you just checking the bank account balance, or are you looking at the trust you're building and the actual lives you're improving? Keep that in the back of your mind as you tackle your own work this week. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I absolutely cannot wait to unpack our next topic with you soon.